Hawaii isn't alone. From Los Angeles to Key Largo, Florida, cities and states struggle with the pros and cons of illegal or underground short-term rentals. Is it simply home sharing, putting that spare bedroom to good use, earning additional income? Or is it an unregulated multi-billion-dollar movement driven mostly by the short-term rentals of entire homes and condominiums? What do you think about the Airbnb-ing of Hawaii? This live broadcast and live stream of Insights on PBS Hawaii are next.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Yanji Denise. Hawaii, along with other vacation destinations around the country, is now faced with thousands of legal and illegal short-term rentals in our neighborhoods. Airbnb, Expedia, and other online vacation rental sites have become the popular lodging alternative to traditional full-service hotels. Supporters say it provides needed extra income for local people while providing accommodations to supplement the hotel industry's high occupancy rate. Opponents maintain that it promotes illegal businesses, job losses, revenue loss to the government, higher housing prices, and disruptions in our neighborhoods. Can policymakers, community members, and homeowner hosts come to a workable solution to the benefit of all? Tonight, we'll hear from different stakeholders in this dispute. We look forward to your participation in our show. You can email, call, or tweet us your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. In fact, the conversation on this subject actually began last night on Facebook. Go check it out. Now to our guest. Sharlyn Fu is the owner of Backpackers Vacation Inns on the North Shore of Oahu, a legal vacation rental. The business was started by her brother, the late Mark Fu, in 1979 and run by Miss Fu since 1998. She is currently a member of the North Shore Neighborhood Board. Lawrence Bartley is the co-founder and president of Save Oahu's Neighborhoods. It is a loose organization of volunteers whose mission is to coordinate effective participation of people and organizations' activities to prevent further erosion of residential neighborhoods and loss of housing. Mr. Bartley is also a longtime member of the Kailua Neighborhood Board. Home sharing supporter Will Page is a longtime resident of Kailua, where a significant number of home sharing businesses thrive. Mr. Page founded Page Marketing Incorporated in 1996, which publishes the detailed map of Kailua and the Japanese language Kailua Beach Map. Mr. Page supports the Airbnb business model, but he is not authorized, nor is he here tonight to speak on behalf of Airbnb. Cade Watanabe is a community and labor organizer with Unite Here Local 5, a labor union representing 11,000 hotel, healthcare, and food service workers throughout our state. Mr. Watanabe also serves as a volunteer board member of the Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action. Insights invited members of the community who currently host guests through Airbnb and other online rental platforms, but we were not successful in confirming appearances tonight for any of those individuals. Also, Airbnb does not have staff in Hawaii, and only employees of the company are authorized to speak on its behalf. From Airbnb's San Francisco headquarters, the company did send the following statement for tonight's program. Quote, as the third largest home sharing platform in Hawaii, Airbnb is committed to being a leader in collaborating with state and county officials to develop fair regulations that protect affordable housing, preserve neighborhoods, and support the $5.1 billion in economic activity this industry generates for the state. Now, before we get started with our discussion, let's look at some baseline information compiled by UHERO, the University of Hawaii Economic and Research Organization, just to give us a basis for our discussion. The first slide reads as follows. Let's take a look. In 2016, 1 in 3 travelers stayed in home-based accommodations. That's versus 1 in 10 just 5 years ago. Airbnb, of course, founded in 2008. In 2016, the company listed 3 million homes and hosted some 70 million guests. Quite a bit of growth there in just 8 years. 2025, analyst projections that Airbnb share of U.S. hotel and short-term rentals will increase to 13% versus just 2.3% right now. Other players, of course, include HomeAway, that's VRBO, and TripAdvisor's FlipKey. Per Airbnb, our market here in Hawaii has between 9,000 and 10,000 listings, but an HTA 2015 study of individually advertised units in Hawaii identified more than 27,000 units advertised on various platforms, including Airbnb, VRBO, FlipKey, and clear stay. Factoring out duplicate applications across all those websites, the HTA does estimate that there are 17,000 actual individually advertised units. The majority are unlicensed and represent entire rather than shared units. Now let's get to the discussion. That's a lot of introduction. We want to start with you. You've been an advocate on this issue for a long time, talking about protecting neighborhoods. What have you seen? How have these companies impacted local folks here in Hawaii?
They've enticed people to become involved in illegal activity. They've their outreach plus the county's lack of enforcement, an obvious lack of enforcement and inability to get a grip on this has caused this issue or this problem to just blow way out of proportion. Now every neighborhood on Oahu is affected, including Kalihi Valley, places you wouldn't have thought vacation rentals would exist. They're now everywhere. Manoa, I could name them all. And so it's really gotten out of hand, and they have facilitated that, knowingly sending out postcards to neighborhoods that are not eligible for vacation rental zoning, sending people postcards, enticing them to make money by renting out their homes.
Cade, I see you nodding over here. How is this impacting Local 5?
Well, I think in two very important ways. One, I think, is to understand that Airbnb in particular is valued at over $30 billion. That's many times more than many of our large hotel operators that provide good, decent jobs for our communities. I think one thing that we've recognized that there's definitely a niche market for tourists who are looking for a certain kind of experience that are looking to stay outside of Waikiki or traditional resort areas. But there's a huge difference in terms of the positive impact that our traditional hotels play versus the vacation rental market. One is that visitors who stay in vacation rentals spend a lot less than those that stay in traditional hotels. Our hotels, traditional hotels, generate enough tax revenue for the state to fund our one child through public education for the entire year. Over $8,000 a year is generated in state tax revenue from one hotel room. And I think the second very important point is that, for our members throughout the state of Hawaii, there's no denying that the rising cost of living. I grew up in a very rural area on the Big Island in Honoka'a, and it pains me to see so many of the people that I grew up with having to leave our community. We have one Hawaii. This is the Hawaii that I want to be able to raise my family in. And this is an important issue for so many people who call Hawaii our home. But we've got to be able to recognize that the growing number of vacation rental units directly impacts our ability to preserve good housing for locals in the rental market. Home ownership is getting more and more out of reach. And if our state government, our city government officials are serious about addressing the housing issue, then they've got to get serious about addressing the unintended consequences of this unpermitted growth throughout our state.
Sharlyn, you're coming at this from someone who is doing this the legal way. When you see all of these illegal operators popping up, how does that affect your business and how does that make you feel?
Well, we have to think back to, we started in the conception of this. When we started the business and Mark started this business, there were no laws on the books. There were no ordinances about vacation rentals. So I was participant in writing some of the laws and working with the DPP back then. And our mission was always to have affordable place to stay, So the impact is that I have to live under a lot of rules. I've had to be, used to be, I have to get inspected every year by the fire department. I have to be inspected by the health department. I pay my taxes by GE and my TAT. There's just a lot of things I can do. I can have to pay the hotel tax, but I may not have a restaurant because I'm not zoned resort, I am zoned residential. I am grandfathered in. But I think the important thing here, I think that we do need more B&Bs. I think we do need some home shares. I think the confusion is in the definition of vacation rental unit and B&B or home share. I think putting them together is doing everybody a disservice. It's making it very convoluted because sharing your home, you have the right as a property owner to share your home, and the city and council have made very clear definitions of this way back in 1989 and 1990. There are very clear definitions. I don't understand why everybody's confused. They had B&Bs could have 2 bedrooms, up to 2 bedrooms. They had to be living in the house. You had to have parking for 2 cars if you had 2 rooms. And, you know, I think that we should allow more those kinds of people that could have auntie renting a room, or the widow renting a room, or to help pay the mortgage, or to help, you know, pay, you know, when you're on sustained income. I just think that people are getting it very confused. And I don't have anything against people wanting to stay in a different place in a hotel, or people wanting to spend less money than staying in a hotel. But I think this mushing it all together, and Airbnb does not rent many rooms and things like that. They are renting whole homes, which I have seen so many friends of mine have to leave and keep moving year after year. This started 20 years ago. They've gotten moved out. Well, you can rent it for 6 months, but when wintertime comes, which is the North Shore season, you have to leave. Literally has happened to a person I know 6 times.
Wow.
Trying to live on the North Shore. It's gotten impossible. People have left the island. I have another friend who moved away because they can never afford to buy a house, and they have a family of children, and they can't even rent because, I mean, I have a 2-bedroom little house on my street that's renting for $3,500 a month. That's outrageous.
Well, let's bring you into this discussion. When you hear all of these complaints, what's the upside to something like Airbnb or these short-term vacation rentals? What can they add to our community?
What can they add to the community? One thing they can add to the community is jobs. One thing within a bed and breakfast or within a vacation rental home, the amount that's paid in rentals is about 40% of all the money that they spend on the island. So when they come, they spend a certain amount at the home. They spend even more in the community on restaurant meals, on shopping, and on activities that are there. And I think those jobs mean an awful lot. For a lot of the communities, we're talking about literally millions and billions of dollars. I think the total amount on Oahu that's spent by visitors that are staying at a vacation rental is something like $1.87 billion. And the amount that's paid in taxes is something like $189 million. That's a huge economic value that goes on in these residences. And it's not, these jobs that are there are not jobs that are being sent overseas. These are not jobs that are being performed in China or performed in Mexico or being assembled in Guatemala. These are jobs that are right in Haleiwa, right in Kailua, and that are paying taxes and that are contributing to the community in ways of generating income for local families. And there are an awful lot of local families that are having a hard time paying mortgage and paying their rent and to say, no, you can't rent out short stay. Even if you're a widow, even if you've got a whole house of 3 empty bedrooms, you can't rent out short stay. It's going to ruin the neighborhood. It'll ruin the neighborhood. And it's not true. I mean, the house.
It is true.
It is not true. You can't say to an old lady living in Lanikai that she's got 3 empty rooms, you can't rent those out. You'll have to move to Los Angeles. You'll have to move in with your daughter. You can't live here like that.
Like I said,
Larry, let's bring you
As
in.
usual, we're talking about different things.
Yes.
We're talking about whole house rentals.
Yes.
80% of the.
We're not talking about whole house rentals.
I am.
The laws
I'm
in the
talking
city and
about
county
whole
of
house
Honolulu.
rentals.
So you're
I'm talking about whole house
So when there's
rentals,
somebody
and
living,
80% of these-
when there's somebody living in the
Yeah,
residence,
so
that's
if you're
okay.
talking about, if you're talking about tutu and a B&B,
Yeah.
that's a different thing.
nobody's complaining about that.
Nobody's complaining about that.
And we
It's
don't see
against
that
the
on
law
radar.
in the city
We
and
don't see-
county of Honolulu.
So what?
I
It
just said
doesn't
we
make
should- we
doesn't
should-
make
we should
any
allow
See that on the radar.
Absolutely.
Well, let's.
And
But I
to
also-
his point about all the money coming in, the city of San Francisco addressed this issue. They did a study. They determined that even though they collect more taxes, the net benefit to the city was negative because of the housing issues, because of the way they spend money. People weren't staying in hotels and paying, higher prices and so forth. So,
But
does
are
the
we
city,
attracting
they
perhaps-
did a real study that says the city lost money because of vacation rentals, not gained money.
On the other side, are we perhaps attracting a different kind of visitor, a visitor who perhaps would not stay at Turtle Bay?
But we
would
always
prefer
have.
to stay
We
at
always
home
have. I
rental?
mean, I think
Always.
the one very important thing to understand about our tourism industry is that it's been very flexible. And I think the state of Hawaii has recognized, as are our counties and others, that we do need different niches in our market.
Correct.
There is a
That's
place.
correct.
But
The
we're
state
not.
of Hawaii has recognized it.
But we're not. But one, I take issue with your jobs comment because the kind of jobs that are produced in the vacation rental industry compared to jobs produced in our hotel industry, it's like night and day.
Is it?
Hotel workers in Waikiki have a living wage, have retiree
Is $25 an
medical, have
hour a living
retirement,
wage?
and
is
yet are
Social
having to
Security a
work 2
living
jobs,
wage? Pardon me?
right? The other, so how
Turns out
many?
$25 is not a living wage in Hawaii anyway.
It's
not
nowhere
a
Well,
near
he's
a
saying
living
17 or
wage. It's
18
nowhere
dollars
near
living
a
wage.
But I'm
living
just
wage.
saying, you
people
read the
that are-
statistics.
The
It's $40 an hour.
The average cost for a two-bedroom apartment for somebody to rent is between $1,900 and $2,100 a month. Do you know how much money you have to earn an hour to afford that?
$43 an hour.
$34 an hour.
That's right.
This is obviously a
And-
contentious issue.
Well,
I want
the-
to get to some tape real quick. Airbnb did advertise in this market several months ago. You may have seen some of these spots. Let's take a look at an Airbnb commercial for Hawaii. We will follow it then with a TV commercial that represents a different opinion.
This house to me is kind of a humble dream house. It's our dream home.
Living here in Hawaii is a really expensive place to live, and Airbnb really helps.
It was wonderful. From the very first day, we had people in.
The extra income's been helpful to us because it helps us financially with the mortgage.
Rather than having to rush back to work right away, we were able to take off a little more time because we had that extra income from Airbnb. Airbnb gives us the flexibility to be home with our son.
We appreciate these stories, but Airbnb's real story is of mainland investors and illegal hotel operators invading our communities with thousands of illegal vacation rentals, sending profits to the mainland, leaving Hawaii with fewer homes for local people. No wonder 74% of us oppose Airbnb listing illegal rentals. Now, Airbnb wants a special loophole to continue their practices. Loopholes, illegal rentals. Learn the facts at airbnbwatch.org.
So there you have it. Two very different opinions on this issue. Also, the calls are starting to come in, and there are quite a few of you calling in tonight. Sean's calling in from Kaneohe and says that he feels that it is unfair that big business with hotels is legal, but common man with home B&B is illegal. Cade,
Illegal.
what do you think about that?
Well, it's like comparing apples and oranges, really. Our hotel operators that have been providing good jobs for this community, that follow the law, that pay their fair share of taxes, are also subject to a whole slew of safety requirements. One issue that came up when we were opposing Airbnb and their attempt at legalizing these vacation rental units is a safety issue. All of our traditional hotels have disaster plans. And how many tsunami warnings have we had in recent years? They have very elaborate evacuation plans. How does the city and county of Honolulu, or any county for that matter, account for the thousands of lives that are in our neighborhoods? What happens when a natural disaster happens? And we've got to evacuate a low-lying area like somewhere along the north shore of Oahu or Kailua. The unintended consequences of what happens when we move towards legalizing these vacation rentals isn't just about money, isn't a question of what we permit as legal or illegal. This is a question of whether or not we're going to be able to have a sustainable industry in Hawaii that provides good jobs for our local people, right? Or jobs where people are getting paid under the table.
Yeah, I'd like to throw in on that because when you say that they provide jobs with no FICA being paid, no Social Security
That's
being
not
paid.
true.
They don't pay, they don't have any retirement fund.
That's not true.
They don't. I know the people who
Okay.
run these.
Oh, well, then you know everything.
Yeah, I know a little bit.
That's just not
I know a little
true.
bit about it.
They don't pay
they're not
taxes either,
equivalent
right, Larry?
jobs. They're not equivalent jobs at all.
I think I want to respond to Cade's shot, though. You know, the vacation rentals and bed and breakfasts on Oahu have been operating now for 50 years, 60 years. I don't know how long it's been. It's been a long time. And they don't have the facilities in place in the event of tsunami. They don't have emergency plans in place. In fact, they've been operating with zero regulation, zero standardization, and zero effective taxation for the longest time. And that regulation, that idea of putting regulations in place, of standardizing some laws that they can follow, giving them some leadership, giving them some direction, telling them what they need to do in the event of emergency, that's important. And we're not going to be able to communicate that information to them if we keep declaring them illegal and keep saying we're going to
Well, that's
level
where
the
I
playing
come in
field.
and say, once again, you have to separate bed and breakfast, which is a homestay, which is somebody renting a room in their home, versus a vacation rental unit. They keep putting it together. You see, even on the ads, they say vacation rental units, and then Airbnb is going, oh, but they're renting a room. They have to separate it completely because they are not the same thing, okay? And that is also where it comes in that if you live in your home and you want to rent a room out, you are there. There is no, you will tell them to be quiet because you're living there. You will tell them to park where to park rather than, take them down the
Park on
street.
the street.
there is such a distinct difference that you must not talk about them in the same
But the
sentence.
City and
majority
County
of
of
the
Honolulu
properties
and
that we're
Local
talking-
5 doesn't agree to that difference. They
Well,
don't see that
Yes, they
difference.
do.
Of,
No, they
of
don't.
the properties that we're talking about are whole home rentals.
Correct.
Yes,
That's what
that's
Airbnb
correct.
has, and that's a whole
80%.
different deal. These are investors. A lot, and 70% of these people are investors.
Right.
They are not on the island having a second
There
home
are
and
also
renting it
local
out.
families that own
Very
properties
few.
in
Very
Waimanalo
few.
and Kailua
Very
that are
few.
renting those
Okay,
properties.
30%. I'll give it to you, but not
Hawaii,
not a
Hawaii
majority.
Tourism Authority, I have it right here. Hawaii Tourism Authority did a
Said
big study last
70%.
year.
Yep.
Says 70% of the properties are offered by out-of-state property owners.
Yes.
Which means 3
And
in
this is
10
not
are
a room.
in-state owners.
This is not a room in somebody's home.
No.
So we,
and
you know,
that's different.
Sharlyn's exactly right. We need to divide this issue up and get on the real thing, the real offensive thing, which is the whole house rentals and the lack of enforcement by the city and the damage this is doing to our neighborhoods.
And
And
it
on
is
that
enforcement.
point, a caller says that they believe that Hawaiian culture has been destroyed in Waikiki by the influx of tourists. He says he doesn't want to see the rest of Oahu spoiled by tourists everywhere. What about that? That
Well,
idea?
That's
that,
an HTA problem, and that's a whole other show, okay? I have opinions about that because, you know, their job is to just bring more and more and more and more tourists in, and we're to 9 million now. There is no top number, there is no ceiling to any of this, and we have zero infrastructure for what we are having now. We don't have the roads, that's why we have traffic every single day on the North Shore, every day of the week.
But you know, one thing I want to share is that, and that we found, that I found quite disturbing, is that on Airbnb's website, someone had the gall to list a tent rental
Yes.
in Makua Valley.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, and a Sears tool shed on Maui.
yes.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, with a cot and a garden hose and an
Absolutely.
extension cord.
You know, I think this will have the, you know, to that caller, to that person who raised that question, you know, I think the problem of and the impact that tourists will have, or that you know, that come to our island will have, or islands will have, if you know they stay in vacation rentals, this could potentially be even worse. There's no way. 10 was it? It was crazy renting a tent in Makua Valley
Well, there's
on
a
a public
tree house.
on
There's
a
a tree
public
house on the
beach.
North
Well, we all
Shore.
know that tourism is the heart of our economy,
course, we
right?
need it.
But the big difference is this. I read an HTA study, or a report Laura Thielen made public, that 9 million tourists a year that we're getting now versus the 6 million we were getting in 1988. In real money, we're collecting less now for 9 million tourists than we were for 30 years ago.
and you're attributing that to the vacation rental industry?
Partly because they spend a lot less money. They spend a lot less.
Well, they're not
not
paying
only
attention.
that,
I see a lot of shaking, head shaking over
the-
here. Please.
Impacting the entire economy of the state of Hawaii is not collapsing
not.
because of vacation
talking about how
rentals.
much money was left in pockets by the tourist industry.
And you're saying that because of vacation rentals, it's less
was
now
a
than it
factor.
was
It was
20
definitely a
years
factor.
ago.
Well, we have Hugh writing in from Mokuleia, who says, I assure you that no one on our street is renting their home in order to stay in it. They are renting the entire home. We are not pleased with the disruption of a quiet neighborhood. Rather than changing the law, the present law should be enforced. That's Hugh writing in. What about enforcement? Where is
There
the
is
enforcement?
no enforcement.
It's very difficult. The Corporation Council has set out guidelines for the Department of Planning and Permitting that are very difficult for them to follow. They only have 13 to 15 people for the entire island for all zoning violations. And it's difficult to enforce, so if you're a manager, what do? You put your people on something where they can get some results, right? And so 2 years ago, they put in $300,000 in the budget and hired a bunch of retired inspectors to go out just for vacation rentals, and they were going gangbusters. And as soon as the city saw how effective they were, they pulled them off. They put $225,000
they didn't
back
wait till
in.
they saw how
Excuse me. They put
effective it was.
$225,000 back into the general fund.
Correct.
They never
Spent
released that
$75,000.
$25,000. They released $114,000 to the Planning and Permitting Department. They said they were going to release $300,000. They only released $114,000.
Well, whatever, they got a lot done
No,
for a lot
and they
less.
spent $75,000, and so the problem here is political willpower. The city does not really want to
No.
enforce.
And why do you think
And everybody knows that, because they're convinced they're making money, it's too much trouble. Some of our council members have personal friends who are operating illegal rentals and so forth, so, you know, you couple all
just
this
so you
together,
know-
and it's like the weight is not behind it. The push from the mayor is just not there.
There is no political will.
There's no
When
political
an inspector
willpower.
comes out, they are not allowed to cross the threshold. They are not allowed. They can come to the door, and somebody says, "Are you doing vacation rentals?" They say no, and they have to turn away and walk. We're wasting my money having these inspectors go out. It's just ridiculous. And when it comes to prosecuting these cases, Corp Counsel is holding the evidence up to criminal standards on a civil matter. So Corp Counsel says, oh, you can't prosecute this, you can't prosecute that, because you have to have proof. Like these, they want records and payments and car rentals.
Right.
These people left the island. They're not coming back.
They're not that.
Okay.
It's the information from the host. The host needs.
They
to
can't
divulge
even
that
ask the
information.
host.
Do
They
you
have
agree
the
that
host
there
has
does
to
need
lie.
to be more enforcement?
Pardon me?
Do you agree that there does need to
I
be more
believe that
enforcement?
the law is broken. The law is flawed. The law cannot be enforced.
It could
The law
be.
has too many
could be.
flaws
Definitely
in it.
could be.
For example, the big flaw is the word compensation. It says for compensation. It talks about all the things that go on with people staying at lake, and then it says for compensation. When it comes to for compensation, City and County of Honolulu has said in court, if you give us his tax documents, we'll show you compensation. The judge pulls them aside and says, you're not going to get their tax documents. Do you have anything else on compensation? When they say no, they say you'll have to settle with them or you're going to be ruled against in court. The compensation issue is overwhelming. And they've tried to change that when Kirk Caldwell came into, no, Carlisle came in. Carlisle came in, went to planning permitting department, said we've got to crack down on vacation rentals. And David Sonoy, who was the head, said we can't do that. The law is broken. He said, what do we need to fix it? We need to get something to get rid of the for compensation clause. And they went with a bill to amend Chapter 21 into meetings that were held at the Civic Auditorium in Honolulu. There were 1,000 people that showed up, and 800 of them were there saying you've got to let us have some kind of licensing for vacation rentals and bed and breakfast homes.
And I agree.
The other 200% were there. 200 people were there were saying, oh no, it's ruining our neighborhoods. It's just terrible. The jobs it's creating are just terrible. And
Well,
Do you think that there should be more permits issued to alleviate some of
no,
the illegal
and here's
part
why.
of this?
Here's why.
Not even to the owner occupants?
Until
Enforcement.
I'll address that later. Until we know what we can enforce. The people, let's say you pass a new permitting bill and you issue another 5,000 permits. And the people who don't get permits are simply going to continue operating illegally like they are now because there won't be any improvement in enforcement. Until we can enforce, automate enforcement, change the law to read offer instead of compensation, so advertising can be used. But see, all this has been pushed at the city before, and they always refuse to hear it.
well, there's been a large portion of the population refuse to change
it dies
the law.
in the council. The mayor won't support it.
I mean,
and
New
so
York
forth.
City
So
passed
the political willpower is the thing that is missing.
Right.
and
You
that's
don't
what
have to
has
have
happen.
inspectors going out and trying to catch people at doing things. New York City, San Francisco, advertising is prima facie proof that you are
Right.
doing it. And that you just need one person surfing the web. You know, they've got the address on there, they've got the description of the place, even if they don't have the address. It doesn't take that much. But also the city has no way to collect administrative fines. So there is zero enforcement, there is no consequences for doing illegal activity at all. So there is nothing to pass until there's enforcement, and we've got to find the political will to do that.
Well,
Otherwise,
there's a
it
certain
is too
point
much.
along the way where we say what happened in the United States in 1921 till 1933 was called prohibition, and it created a huge market because the people refused to stop drinking, and they finally had to say, okay, we'll deal away with prohibition because we can't enforce it. And you're dealing with the same thing with the laws.
So are you saying that we should just let loose and everyone should be allowed to do whatever they want?
The United States Conference of Mayors says you should allow permitting. That with permitting, you have a guy apply for a permit, and you've got his name, his address, his city, state, zip. You know where the property is located. You go and you look at the property. You say you're too close to your neighbors. You don't have enough space. You can't have a vacation rental. If he opens a vacation rental, then you say, here, we've got a document that you've signed where you applied for a permit. You're running a vacation rental. It's illegal.
And if there's no enforcement,
I wanna
nothing
bring in
happens.
I do want to say something about enforcement, if I could. I mean, I think a lot has, particularly for the City and County of Honolulu, where our membership is primarily based. I think we've seen a change, in a good way, in terms of the attitude of the current City Council. At least the change in the leadership. I think we have been working and having conversations with DPP as well as with the chair of the City Council and the administration on ways in which we can provide better and supplemental tools to the city to be able to enforce its existing laws. And one of those ideas is to institute private enforcement. And one of the problems that we found, and DPP admitted this, right, and will readily admit this, is that last year they investigated over 3,000 complaints. Over 3,000 complaints. Less than 100 of them resulted in violations, and less than half of them actually stuck. And so, DPP is desperately looking at ways in which it can, address this problem. That's true. I think the chair of the City Council, Councilman Manor, has introduced, along with Joy Manahan, Resolution 1752 that would bring
Written by
about
Local
this
5.
change. Would bring about this change and introduce private enforcement as a way to supplement the
Tell us
city's
what role
ability.
Local 5 had
Well, we
in
want to
putting that bill
we want to
into
bring the
place.
audience on this too.
Sure.
Eddie writes in, I feel the biggest issue with having a complete house rented from an owner is that the person who is not in the islands is that the guests become the neighbor's externality. If no managers on property or present, the issue with the renters becomes every other neighbor's problem. If we had a situation like you're described where everyone can just get a permit, if you have a loud guest at a hotel, perhaps there's somebody that comes and says, hey, hush, it's after 10 o'clock. Or if you're on property
Correct.
at your place, I'm sure that you tell them, okay, no
Oh,
more beer
yes.
for you tonight.
Exactly. We have a quiet time. Our neighbors are really close to us. And I tell the neighbors, they have my phone number at home. I say, call me if there's a problem. Call the police if you don't reach me. I have no problem with that at all. They have to live within the rules of the place. And, I'm not out there on 6 million acres. I have neighbors.
Right, so if the
that's
whole
important.
state is essentially a hotel, who is regulating that?
Right.
I'm a little bit confused by the whole thing. The idea that the person on the property controls the property is correct. And in fact, my understanding is that 80% of the state of Hawaii says that owner-occupants should be allowed to rent out their own property.
We agree with you.
There's no problem with that. Larry, you say there's no problem with that. I'm not sure if Local 5 does have a problem with that. They don't
A problem
do that
with
at all. With local owner-occupants renting out.
Not at all. When have we said that? I've said over and over again, even this evening, that one, I think we recognize that there is a niche market, and secondly, those who need to be able to rent out a room, right, to be able to support and pay for the rising cost of property taxes and water and sewage, why should we penalize those individuals?
And in
But
fact,
we're not talking about that, Mr. Page. We're talking about entire homes being rented out.
we're talking about Airbnb, and we're talking about short stay
entire
rentals.
homes. We're talking about
No, they're
70%
talking
of
about
those
units.
homes are owned by out-of-state residents. And we talk about political will. I think the one thing that we have going for us is that Hawaii is the only state, and Airbnb is one example of this, right? And Airbnb is valued at over $30 billion. $30 billion, over $30 billion. They've gone around from city to city, state to state, in an attempt to pass legislation that would regulate and allow for more of these illegal vacation rentals. Hawaii is the only state that has stopped Airbnb, a multi-billion-dollar company. And I think the reason Airbnb spent close to $250,000 in the last 3 weeks of the legislative session this year on ads that we just saw. And I think the one thing that distinguishes us from the rest of the country is that our island home is our island home.
Yeah.
And the amount of land that we have is finite. And secondly, we have seen year after year more and more of our local people being pushed out of our own communities.
Right.
Back in 2010, Hawaii had the fourth highest rate of out-migration, of residents moving. That was in 2010. Right? The cost of living has skyrocketed. And I think the one difference, the one thing that has enabled our community to stand up against this multi-billion-dollar company is the recognition that this is not just a question of enforcement or lack of, this is a question of whether or not we're going to have enough housing to house our local people.
Well, another thing along that line, though, Cade, is the fact that we have 30 years of experience fighting this problem.
Yes.
I was involved back in 1989, on a peripheral level, but since then I've been very involved in it. And we have a lot of people who this has affected, especially in the old days. It was North Shore mostly and Kailua, right, and Waimanalo. And so we already had a group of people who were savvy about this problem. And so when it hit here, we were ready for them. We'd already been fighting at the city council in 2005 and 2006 and 2009 and 10. So when it hit here, like in San Francisco, there's like suddenly it hit them. So they responded and they did the wrong thing. And almost every city's done the wrong thing and they've regretted it.
Right, I mean, the city
and so,
council.
so they've gotten in bed with Airbnb or whoever it is, and they've regretted it. And now they're trying to back out of these deals, right?
Just remember
wanna-
this.
I don't know if you can say they've regretted it. There's an awful lot of hundreds of towns that have.
I want to bring in one other voice here tonight.
The city of Anaheim is regretting it.
Let's go to tape real quick. The North Shore of Oahu is understandably a popular place for home-based short-term rentals. We did speak with a resident who has seen the impact in her community. Let's take a listen.
It's actually probably grown by leaps and bounds with the entry of Airbnb into the market. You're seeing people doing basically whole home rentals in communities you never would have had before out in, say, Ava or even in Kalihi. You know, Airbnb is coming in and saying, oh, well, you know, this is a way for people to help you augment your income. And I'm sure that's true in some cases. Some folks have been working on affordable housing issues, did some research, and I remember this came up at the legislature last year too when we were fighting the bill. Close to 80+% Airbnb on Oahu are whole homes. So this isn't auntie or uncle renting out the back room for a few extra dollars. This is somebody that's buying a property or has an extra home and they're renting it out. So that's our concern, is that Airbnb is not correctly characterizing what's going on, and it's giving a false impression. Because if it was just auntie or uncle renting the back room, odds are it would be a lot less intrusive than it is. I mean, I live in a nice middle-class neighborhood on the North Shore. We're not right on the ocean. We're a short walk to the beach, but I can see it even in my neighborhood. It's an old plantation neighborhood, not the kind of neighborhood, not big fancy homes or anything like that you would assume, and yet I know people are renting out the whole homes in the backs of the houses.
Now, piggybacking on what she just said, we have so many calls coming in tonight. We're going to try to get to as many as possible. This is Ursula from Kailua saying if she wanted to live where people rented, she would have lived in a resort-owned area. However, in her residential area, she does not feel safe with strangers in her neighborhood, and it says it's taking away from the community to have all these short-term renters. She no longer knows who belongs in her neighborhood. What about that issue, the safety issue?
I think the safety issue is, well, is there any individual that is incarcerated in any prison anywhere in the United States that was ever arrested for committing some violent crime at some vacation rental in Honolulu? You read about the thing in the paper last week about the vacation rental, about the problems that were being caused by the vacation rentals. You read about that, didn't you? No, you didn't. Because we never read about that. We never see anything about, oh, vacation rentals have wild party on the North Shore, hundreds of people arrested, 30 people arrested, 10 people hit by cars. We never read about any problems
But what about the community feel? What about knowing your neighborhood?
I think Ursula is overstating it. You know, the idea that these people are criminals is not true.
No, okay, they're not criminals,
visitors.
but let me tell you, there are neighborhoods on the North Shore, whole streets and areas, especially on the North Shore, because I think that's where ground zero was for this, that are the majority of the homes. For instance, in this one nice little exclusive neighborhood, out of the 27 homes that are there, 24 of them are vacation rentals in this little gated community. Nice community. And so no, it's what it is, it's the numbers. It's the numbers that have gotten out of hand.
Well, it's not only that, it's the individual cases. You know, being involved with this issue for such a long time and having a public face, and we had a website and ran ads in newspapers and so forth. I've gotten calls, I probably get one a month at least, sometimes more, from somebody in Eva, Waianae, Makaha, Kalihi Valley, wherever. Oh my God, life is terrible, what am I gonna do? I called the Department of Planning and Permitting and they send somebody out, but they're having parties over there and I can't sleep at night, this house is 15 feet from my house, what do I do? And so I hear these stories. I've heard so many.
I think we should call, ask the police for statistics.
I give them the DPP's phone number, and of course, they don't get any enforcement. So.
Now, on the other side tonight, Marcia writing in says short-term rental market not only stabilizes Hawaii's home ownership, meaning that people can use that money then to help pay their mortgage, it also offers a much more affordable vacation option for families with children. This encourages tourism and brings more dollars into our economy. Marcia writing in. Cade,
once again, that's an in-home stay.
Well,
that's the deal.
Look, I mean, I think that's great for the tourist. What about local people like me? And I get that people want to be able to rent out a bedroom to, again, help supplement their income. But how do people are gonna laugh, but that know me, but I'm barely in the millennial, barely, just barely. But like, how do we? It's real. I don't own a home. I'm a renter. If I want to be, I can't even think about supplementing my income to be able to pay a mortgage because I can't afford a mortgage.
Right.
So what's happening to the thousands, an entire generation of people that are my age, that are working professionals, that want to stay in Hawaii, that call Hawaii our home, that want to raise our kids here? We don't have a home to supplement any income and rent a bedroom. We can't even barely afford our rent. And how can we when we've got to earn over $34 an hour?
Right.
To afford a 2-bedroom apartment?
Exactly.
How do we afford an $880,000 home, a $400,000 condominium?
Right.
Like, who are we prioritizing here?
Well, not only that, it's affected housing so much that now we have this phenomena, you know, on my street, everywhere. It's adult children living at parents' home,
Right.
ACLAP, ACLAPH. Right? It's everywhere.
Yes.
Every house on my street has an adult, including mine, has an adult child living in parents' home.
Well,
And
My
they used
house
to move
too.
out. They
My
used to
house
move
too.
out.
Nobody can afford to move out at $9.25 an hour. You cannot go rent a place. You can't even rent a room because they would rather rent the room out as short term because they make money.
Well, to that end, a local couple writing in, born and raised from Kailua, they have a small vacation rental that they registered. They say they have to have it to make ends meet. So that is what you're talking about. Somebody who buys a home and, you know, to pay the mortgage, they have to have that.
That's fine.
And that's yeah, and you know, we're not talking about going after or finding ways to penalize those individuals. The question here is, are we going to protect our residential neighborhoods and keep them residential neighborhoods, or are we going to allow them to become corporatized? Are we going to allow hotels essentially to operate in our residential areas? If you want to operate a vacation rental unit in a resort area, then go ahead and do so.
Right, but the thing is, I actually have a friend whom this nice couple came, they wanted to rent the house long term. This happened, the same couple went to 2 different people I know, and they were going to rent the house long term. They thought, great, you know, they're going to rent it long term. They were never going to live there. They made it short term. And guess what? They don't get in trouble. The owner will get in trouble if anybody got in trouble, but nobody gets in trouble. But some of these people are just seriously looking at it like just a way to make money. They weren't ever going to live there.
There's a house in an area in Kailua. They had run up over $600,000 in fines, flaunting the law openly, no regrets, no problem. They settled for $1,000.
Yep.
And now they're reported to be doing it again. They went to court, got a settlement for $1,000. Now they're reported. Neighbors are complaining to me that they're renting out short term again. So this lack of enforcement, it overshadows everything we're talking about.
Correct.
Here. Everything. So if you don't have enforcement, you can talk about this kind of permitting. And one reason we've never separated Tutu with a single room from the vacation rental is because when they come to the council, they come together. They wear the same hats, they wear the same T-shirts, they present the same story.
They're not
and
the
so
same.
if you permit Tutu and give them a permitting process with no enforcement, every vacation rental is going to suddenly become Tutu and get a permit and go on operating just like they are now because they're already doing it with.
What is the solution then?
The city to get its act together and pass some effective legislation that allows enforcement to proceed. It has to be automated. It has to be done through advertising or offering rather than actually receiving money. They did it on Maui. They did sting operations on Maui. They just called people up and made reservations and they use enforcement. They won't do that in Honolulu. We've asked them why and they said, well, we don't do that here.
I mean, the laws are clear. There are already ordinances that define what these things are. As I said, there's no question. They don't need to redefine anything. They're there. But with the DPP's hands are tied because our city council, I'm afraid to say, is afraid to act. The DPP is frustrated. They have no tools for enforcement.
Do you think that the state has a role in any of this?
Yes and no. I think the state and the city, the state cares about the taxes, okay? That's what they care about. And they said, well, it's not our problem. You know, you city and county people deal with it. But we don't, you know, we just want the tax dollars. And so they're just basically, they don't work together. Maybe they don't ever have to work together, but our city needs to work for our people. And they are just ignoring it. I mean, I think the councilman said to me, I said, well, what do you think? What do you want to do? And he said, it's complicated.
Well, and it's complicated, but it's not complicated, right? I mean, we are if we're going to address this problem and find a way to continue to call Hawaii our home, we've got to get serious about housing.
Yes.
We really do. Our governor has made proclamations about building more affordable housing. That's great. So has the mayor of our city, and that's great. But if you look at the amount of housing units they're talking about, it's very minimal. It's barely going to make a dent.
Right.
If you look at the growth of it, if you want to get serious about housing, you've got to get serious about understanding the growing rate of the illegal vacation rental market. We took HTA's projection in terms of the amount of currently individual units being used as vacation rentals, and we projected that out. And it's nearly 400 homes a month are being converted into vacation rentals. 400 homes a month, right? In the year and a half, it's going to be over 40,000 homes in the state of Hawaii that are going to be used as vacation rentals. The state said, DBED came up with a study and said by 2025, we're going to be in need of 65,000 affordable units or homes for a community. How are we going to ever get there when more and more homes are being taken out of our rental and ownership market?
How are we going to get there when we're building $1 million condominiums all along Ala Moana Boulevard?
I totally agree.
That's a topic for another show.
That's a
But going
different
back
show.
to those numbers, are those numbers statewide, the 400 conversions,
Yes.
or is
Yes, that's a state, but that's a state when the state's number in terms of
How many
65,000
of those are
more
on Oahu?
units by 2025 is a state number as well. This is not
Oahu's
just an
20,000.
island by island issue. This is a statewide issue. If we want to make sure that Hawaii is strong and vibrant, that we have a good tourist base as our economy, that we keep our brightest young people here in the islands, we've got to have a robust economy. Yes, that's true. But we've got to be able to get serious about where we're going to house our local people. I mean, it's a real challenge for us as a community, and if we're gonna be serious about that, that's where we need the political will. We've got to, of course, address these issues in terms of policy, right? And I would say again that the leadership of the current council, at least here on Oahu, is taking some steps to move in that direction. They've got to move quicker, but they're at least moving in that direction. The county of Maui is moving in that direction as well. The county of Maui, is moving towards hiring a company to look at all the illegal vacation rentals that are being listed online and in an attempt to try to go after them.
But you don't need a company, you just need one person, 2 people.
Right.
They are listed. And the thing is, we're talking Airbnb. That's just the noisiest one at the moment, okay? But there are dozens of booking platforms.
That's right.
And so consequently, the numbers are way larger. This is just Airbnb numbers. And so if you add in all the other ones, you're talking thousands more. So this is what you have to understand. It's not just Airbnb issue, it's all the booking platforms. And that many numbers has to affect housing.
That is
There's
true.
no
That
question.
is definitely true, but Airbnb is also the largest, biggest, fastest growing
It's the
player in the
noisiest,
market.
They're not
exactly.
the largest. they're not the
Airbnb did
biggest.
not, across worldwide, when Airbnb launched, they launched on all the continents
Right.
on the globe, all at once.
Right.
I mean, talk about a sophisticated operation. They did it all at once. I mean, they are
spending
a
millions.
sophisticated organization.
Well, let's bring in some of these calls tonight, and I know we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but Diane and Haleiwa writing in, people don't want to buy a house when the next door house is rented to Airbnb travelers. The house value decreases tremendously. Are there any compensation laws for the owner of the affected house? Doubtful, Diane.
Yes, actually,
There are.
under state law, there is a way under state law to sue for zoning violations. And a case took place on the North Shore about 10 years ago, was semi-successful in that the law was upheld by the appeals court and so forth. So that is available to people. It's expensive, and people are kind of afraid to do it. But the bill Mr. Watanabe was talking about in front of the council now would add to that by kind of embellishing or improving the private right of enforcement, right? But going back to enforcement, just for a second, one major problem we have with the Department of Planning and Permitting is it used to be the Department of Land Utilization and then the Building Department. And they used to do their enforcement. Now it's all one department, and you have professional planners in charge of enforcement. That is not their mantra. They're nice people, they're great designers, but they're not policemen. And so last year at the 2016
What kind of enforcement would you
Constitutional
recommend, Larry?
Convention, or what we call it, the Charter Commission. We put forth just changing the title of it in the DPP to Land Use Enforcement Officer, just to create a position with the people who already are there. Wouldn't cost a penny. The DPP said, no, we don't want that.
Well, you know, back in the day.
So this kind of tells you that their heart
I got
is not
raided
into
back in the
this.
day, and this is what people don't understand. Before there was the laws, and then they had this really strange law that was by the state, because the state has more teeth than the city and county. I literally got raided at 7:30 in the morning with sheriffs with pump shotguns. Okay, so they could enforce what they want to. Let me put it that way, but that was through the state. The city can't do anything, they have no power. But the state came and just accused me of doing something illegal with pump shotguns, okay?
So you're
it
saying
can
the
be done.
resources are there.
They're there.
This is an interesting
Political
point,
willpower
and
is
this
missing.
caller's agreeing with
I don't agree
you.
with this at all because, Larry, you can't go to court and can't get a search warrant for people having rentals. You can't get a search warrant for it. You can't go busting into people's
Sting
homes.
operations.
You can't be looking
sting
through their
operations
windows.
have worked on Maui. They've worked all over the
So you
mainland.
feel you can
They'll
break
work.
the Constitution of the United States just to release the Constitution of the United States? City and County of Honolulu wants to do it. We don't have to worry
You
about
don't
the
need a
United States
warrant for
Constitution.
administrative searches. You do not need a warrant.
What about this caller writing in to say, I agree, like prohibition, this industry is difficult to enforce. We need to be realistic about the laws.
Yeah.
Is he right? Are the laws unrealistic?
The laws are slightly flawed. The major problem is political willpower to enforce the law.
In other words, don't write laws
the
you're not
things,
going to
the
enforce.
changes that we've tried to put through in the law have been resisted due to lack of political willpower. So if the law was right and the city was behind it, the enforcement would take place.
If the
No
people
question.
believed that it was correct, then they would be behind the law.
Oh, the people
If
are
the people
definitely behind
believed
it.
that it
The
was
people
correct,
are
then they
definitely
wouldn't be
behind it.
violating the law. The people want to do rentals. They want the income. They need the income. That's why
Yes,
they're doing
that's
the
A
rentals.
few people do.
Yeah.
A few people.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
I think I think there may be that niche market, Mr. Page, but how do we reconcile the fact that so many of the vast majority of these listings for vacation rentals are for the entire home?
Right.
Right.
And how can you account for the fact that over 70% of these listings are being offered by residents out of state? So
Those
again,
are real numbers.
Again, look, I get it. I have, when I saw that commercial from Airbnb, I think they were Big Island residents, in
They
fact.
were all Big
Right.
Island residents.
Because they're legal over there. That's why they use
Correct.
it.
They're
Yeah, that's why they
Right.
use them. But I get it. I get a local family, that couple in Kona that wants to rent. In Kailua, Kona, on the Big Island, 1 out of 8 homes are being used as vacation rentals.
If there was
Are
some
they
law in
in-home?
place that would say for owner occupants, we're going to let you get a permit.
Yes.
The vast majority of those folks that are showing up at the city council meetings would be all satisfied, would not be
That's
showing
what
up
I
again.
think should happen.
That's what it is. The people that are showing up there are local residents. People don't fly in from the mainland to show up at city council or show up at state of
Yes.
Hawaii to testify
I do
about
have a
these
point
issues.
there because I know there was an attempt to get Airbnb and they're nowhere to be found,
They're
right?
nowhere to be found.
Well,
Yet they can spend millions of dollars flooding our market
definitely,
with TV
But they don't answer the
definitely
phone.
would welcome Airbnb on this show. They have an open invitation here at Insights. We only have a few minutes, and I know you wanted to share some information how people who are passionate about this can get involved.
Yes, I've been receiving calls for years now, and all about neighbors complaining what's going on in their neighborhoods and what can they do about it. So they've asked me, and all I can do is give them the DPP's phone number, which I've done, and pray their situation will get better. But if they really want to find out more about this, they can email us at sunhawaii, sunhawaii, SONHAWAI at hawaii.r.com. And then we can respond if they're looking for more information or ideas and so forth. We can get back to them.
Based on the number of calls tonight, I have a feeling that you will get quite a few emails coming up.
I hope that was clear the way I said that.
It was, and we also did put that on the screen. Do you have a final thought tonight? Where should we go with this?
No, I don't. I think the entire issue needs to be resolved at the city council level with some type of reasonable regulation, permitting, taxation. I think that would some level of standardization in terms of how people should operate. I think that would be very helpful. I think the idea of lumping it all together, if it's short stay accommodations, it needs to be separated between owner occupants and between non-owner occupants. And other than that, I think it's a very profound issue. I don't think it's going to go away, and I don't think that saying, oh, the housing problem is all the fault of the vacation rentals, all the fault of B&Bs. This is like a very small percentage of residences, very small percentage of the island, and to say this is what's causing the housing shortage in the islands, that's preposterous, that's ridiculous. There are so many factors. There was a group in Kaneohe that said they were going to build 25 homes up by Ho'omaluhia Park. Took them 25 years to get a permit from the city and county of Honolulu. Every time they went in, they said, oh, we're building Kapolei now, we're building Eva, we're going some other way, don't come back. And finally, after 25 years.
We're going to have to leave it there. We're going to have to leave it there. Mahalo to all of you for joining us tonight. We do regret that a representative from Airbnb could not be here. Hopefully, we will have an opportunity in the future to gather again with Airbnb at this table for an update on this model for accommodating our visitors. We want to thank our guest, Sharlyn Fu, owner of Backpackers Vacations Inn, Will Page, home sharing supporter, Lawrence Bartley, president of Save Oahu's Neighborhoods, and Cade Watanabe with Unite Here Local 5. Next week on Insights, we will look at a different facet of the tourist experience in Hawaii, one that's been getting quite a bit of publicity on the mainland. The Huffington Post headline reads, quote, too many tourists are dying in Hawaii, and in the Bay Area, NBC's story promised dangerous destinations revealed. We look specifically at hiking accidents and rescues on all the islands, and you might be surprised to find out who's assigned to manage the controversial trail that lures so many locals and tourists, even though it's been closed for years. That's next week. We hope you'll join us. I'm Yanji Denise for Insights on PBS Hawaii, a hui hou.